Today's episode of the Cantina is brought to you by Grow Generation. Whether you're at the Death Star or the Senate, they have everything you need to grow right where you are. More from them later in the episode.
Welcome to a galaxy far, far away. Here at the Cantina Podcast, we provide top shelf service, including rumors, leaks, news, and reviews. Come in, order a Loman Ale, and remember, no droids allowed. Thank you guys so much for joining us here at the Cantina. Thank you, Emperor Palpatine. We definitely support the Green Empire around here with our awesome sponsors over at Grow Generation. GrowGeneration.com. It's where the pros grow the grow.
Thank you for your support.
There you go. Yes. Drinks on him, everybody. Anyways, welcome to the Cantina. I am one of your hosts here, Kyle, and joined by the other host, as always, from across the pond, Cam. What's up?
Nothing much. Yep, all good.
Man, it's been dreary today, and it reminded me of Europe. I can say that. I live there.
It's not bad. It's not bad here at the moment. It's not been a bad week, but that is. Yeah. And when I live in Scotland, so we're not traditionally known for having very good weather. Even in summertime, it just rains a lot in summer. It's basically almost like a rainforest. So,
America's got a spot exactly like that. Do you know where it's at? I swear to you, 100%.
Yeah, there probably is. Yeah, just in terms of whereabouts.
The Pacific Northwest, so like Washington, Tacoma, Seattle, all of that area, Vancouver, all like I used to tell, because I was born in Tacoma.
Still be slightly different because obviously it's
a
bigger landmass and there's more
but
mountains and stuff.
The constant mistiness, the overcast, almost regularly.
I mean,
I always told people...
It's not even that here. It's like that here, and our kind of springs and autumns are a bit like that. And in summer, it just kind of either gets really hot, and then it just all the water evaporates, and then it just turns to rain clouds, and we just get torrential rain constantly, thunder, all that sort of stuff. But we kind of at either end. We usually get a few good days, like maybe a week or two at the start of spring and at the end of summer. It kind of gets all right, and then it's just very quick. Autumn almost doesn't exist in Scotland. It just doesn't exist. It just goes from, it's like a week and then it's winter, and that's it. Anyway, it's not the best. That's why people in Britain dream about saving enough money to go and live in Spain or something like that for their retirement, and sit by a pool all day. But I suppose in America you would just move to a different bit of America where it's sunny, like California or Florida or something like that. You don't have to move abroad to do it. It's a little bit different here.
It is. I lived in Germany for about 6 years of my life. My wife lived there about 9 years of hers. 3 of them with me. And just the sheer difference in the way weather is there, like what is a storm in Germany compared to a storm in, say, the state of Arkansas or the state of Missouri.
I mean, even then there would be differences between Germany and here, because I dare say Germany gets worse weather than we do at times. I mean, in terms of, not worse in terms of it's just horrible all the time, but like extreme weather, we very rarely get extreme weather where it's dangerous at all. I don't think. We've never had a situation where, you have to board up your windows because there's a big storm coming. I mean, I've seen some big storms, but they're never enough to cause that kind of damage, very, very rarely. So we don't get tornadoes, we don't really get tsunamis.
It's funny that you say that, because if I'm not mistaken, the UK actually does get technically the most tornadoes per square something but they're all itty bitty ones or something like that. There was.
I wouldn't think there'd be enough flat ground for that. I mean, there's nowhere flat.
Yeah, it was some weird.
Yeah.
No, it was
Especially
some weird
Scotland,
European country, and it was basically.
I mean, it would maybe be a flat country like Holland, like the Netherlands or something like that.
It's huge in the UK. I'm looking at the map, but it doesn't give the list. I could just see the map with like all the colors, and of course it's got the US. But no, dude, yeah, it's here it is. While other countries may get more...
If you've tuned in waiting for Star Wars today and you're worrying about
this is important. This is important.
Just
while other countries may get more severe tornadoes or more tornadoes overall in a year or season, the country that receives the most tornadoes by total area is England. Between 1980 and 2012, England experienced 2.2 tornadoes per year per 10,000 square kilometers. I knew it.
But they must be so small that people can literally just walk through them and not notice they're in a tornado. I mean, that's because it's never caused any damage. That's for sure. I think if there was an actual tornado, it would literally be on the news here. Like there was a tornado in Birmingham today.
Exactly.
And, something like that. But
exactly.
I just didn't think we'd enough sort of flat ground. But anyway.
Yeah, get to some
get tornadoes.
Star
I wonder
Wars
if you get tornadoes on Tatooine.
Dust devils, giant dust devils, dude. Dust storms. I could talk dust storms forever, but Iraq, Afghanistan, but no, Star Wars stuff, like everything, guys. As things have opened up, everyone seems to have taken a collective break from the interwebs. You have your usual suspects out there stirring the pot with, oh God, George Lucas is coming back with his own self-financed trilogy.
Musical.
What? Huh? The hell? But Did
someone say that? Did someone actually say that? Because obviously legally he would not be allowed to do that.
Oh my
in
God!
Any way whatsoever. He literally would not be able to connect that with Star Wars.
This was him coming.
Sued.
This was him coming to work with Disney, and the deal was that he would self-finance it so he could come in. That's what it was.
Crazy, man. There's no way that's going to happen, man. No way.
Imagine
what was it? Let me guess.
Lucas,
was it a replacement for the sequel trilogy?
I don't know. I don't know what the specific was. It was a George Lucas trilogy. He was only coming in if he would self-finance it, and he was willing to do it to save Star Wars.
He has done that retired to Spain thing. Although it's not Spain, but where he's sitting by a pool, smoking Cuban cigars and just chilling out and going, how much money did I make on interest today? Hey, £1 million, brilliant. Where are we going tomorrow? That's George Lucas's life at the moment. He can do whatever the hell he wants, and he ain't at his age ever coming back and self-financing some sort of, which just doesn't even make sense. One of our regular Star Wars guys was getting into, and I think it was some DC news this week for the first time, and I seen quite a lot of because I think they get a free run at Star Wars where people just don't even bother about them, but they were starting to branch into some other areas, and some of the more kind of reputable scoopers just gave them absolute bollocks online and just said, like, this is bullshit. It was quite funny. But anyway, we I'm sick of talking about those guys, to be honest.
Dude,
we give them too much press.
At this point, what's so sad about it is, yes, there is not a lot of news coming out. Why you have
there's little things, but not a lot.
But not what we were used to during the Mandalorian.
But then, as we've said, we don't think Star Wars are very good at their marketing, do we? Not compared to Marvel. Marvel seem to always think, right, there's been enough time, we need to give them something else, something to keep the hype going.
Right.
Star Wars haven't quite learned that yet. I mean, they could have definitely given us more information without spoiling anything on some of the stuff they're working on at the moment, for sure.
And in addition to that, is the idea that not only are they not the best at marketing, but we've heard that there's been some rewrites for certain shows. Certain shows have been put on hold. Rangers of the New Republic. So it makes sense that there's not a whole lot of viable and verifiable information coming out.
Leaks wise, possibly, yes, I agree with you. Although at the same time, you know, we're getting a lot of stuff, set photos wise, all that sort of stuff for Andor because it's location shooting. What we're finding is that we're not really getting that for the likes of Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, and we heard nothing about Mandalorian. I'm having literally nothing about Mandalorian Season 3, which is presumably kicked off as well. And that's because they're all using the volume. They're all in sets, so there's no set photos or anything like that to look at. Whereas with Andor, you know, I mean, already I've seen more for Indiana Jones 5 than we have for the Book of Boba Fett, which is wrapped, for example. It is a strange situation. But there was some news this week that could end up tying into kind of definitely the Book of Boba Fett. Eventually, it might not, but certainly there was some interesting stuff come out in a recent comic this week. I don't know if you saw that story at all about the new comic that came out, and it's kind of next in a run of the Bounty Hunter comic, but it's War of the Bounty Hunters. You heard about that at all?
Yeah. I've been keeping a bit on it. What'd you find interesting about it?
Well, the interesting thing is that Kira shows up in it, and now before I even start, what I will say is my first instinct with this story is because of where it's set is it's basically a replacement for Shadows of the Empire, which I don't like.
Right.
And I know you won't like that either, because Shadows of the Empire was a really fucking good book, and it was a good story. The game was limited by what it could do at the time, but it was a grand plan, if you like. There was comics, there was novels of it, and you know, and it really was the official what happened in between Empire and Jedi. Lucas signed off and everything like that, and basically that's gone now. It's out the window because this War of the Bounty Hunters is now telling that story basically in a completely different way, but more focused on Boba Fett and the other bounty hunters. There's no Emperor, Vader. Well, Vader's in it, but there's no, you know, what the other character stories were at the same time. Because Shadows of the Empire, of course, there was 3 stories going on. There was kind of Boba Fett and getting Han to Jabba and what was going on with him at the time, while he had sort of Lando and Chewie tracking him down and everything like that. There was what was going on with Luke and Leia at the time, and then there was also what was going on between Vader, Caesar, and the Emperor, and that whole kind of like vying for the Emperor's favour kind of thing as well. So there was 3 quite interesting stories going on at the same time that made that up. The War of the Bounty Hunters so far is just focused on the Boba Fett, Han and Carbonite side of things, so doesn't say what's going on elsewhere. So I suppose it doesn't completely decanonize it, but it kind of does. But the interesting thing is that one of the people in the story, there's all these people trying to get hold of the Han and Carbonite. Most of those people are bounty hunters, just because they want, if they can get it off Boba Fett and get it to Jabba, they get the money, and Boba Fett doesn't. Simple as that. It's just trying to make money, which is the best reason that you could give to do something like that in the first place. But one of the criminal organisations interested turns out to be Crimson Dawn, and Crimson Dawn, when you find out who it is that's after Han, it turns out to be Kira. Of course, Kira from Solo, who was an old friend of Han's and everything like that. So it's interesting because it's the first time we've seen anything of her post Solo, if you like.
I guess. I mean, I can't stand Solo, and it's so
but it
disappointing
wasn't
to see
the things that you didn't
shoehorn.
like about Solo was the Han Solo stuff.
Well, I mean, everything. I don't care for any of it.
But Kira's stories and how she goes into the underground, that's not a bad story, though. There wasn't anything really wrong with that. You didn't dislike the character of Kira in any way, did you?
I didn't like her. There was nothing to like. Nothing did.
I don't know. I think that's because you were too pissed off at all the little hand things that annoyed you, to be honest.
How do you care about these other characters whose relationships are based on Han if the Han is
I don't think they necessarily are. I mean, just because somebody starts off in the universe... but clearly the point of that film was that she was making that choice to move away from Han and go in a different direction. So wherever her story goes next doesn't necessarily need to in any way tie in with the story that goes on with Han Solo. I always thought we might see a bit of her in the Lando series if it comes, if, as we suspect, it would be starring Donald Glover. But there's been really no news in Lando. And you know, there's been a few rumours about leakers and like that saying it's on hold a little bit at the moment. It's like they don't know what they're doing with it, I think. So I don't know what's going on there really at the moment. It was already announced, but
I would wager they thought they were going to do that whole thing where they were going to bounce back and forth between Glover and Williams, and either Williams's health or Glover's other projects are getting in the way.
Like Glover is not available anytime soon for doing anything.
So now they're having to rework it before they had all old or all young.
Yeah. Well, the all old subheads, that won't work. You know, I'm sorry, but you know, no one's really interested in a Lando show starting.
Well, they all want to know about his daughter.
80s, but you know, but as we said, a great way to do that would be you find out it is his daughter, and he tells his daughter about some of the stuff he used to get up to, and that flashes back to the stuff with Donald Glover, because that's more interesting. We don't know what's going on there. You know, at that point in Lando's life, you know, he's helped again. You know, the Emperor's been destroyed. He's reconnected with his daughter. You just kind of feel he's going to chill out at a bar somewhere and talk to his daughter and try and have a good life. You know, he's not really going to do anything pretty much exciting at that point at his age, but you know, where all his adventures came were really in that period before he became a good guy. Like, how does he get from where we leave him in Solo to being in charge of the Bespin Tabana gas mine? You know, I mean, that's an interesting story. I think that I wouldn't mind seeing, I have to admit, probably more so than seeing anything else of Han Solo. I wouldn't mind if Han kind of showed up occasionally as a guest or something like that, but really I prefer it to be focused on Lando. But I wouldn't mind seeing a bit of Kira, and given that we now know that Kira is still around between Empire and Jedi and still involved with Crimson Dawn at that point, of which case Maul's out the picture by then, because Maul's already dead by then. Obi-Wan's already killed Maul again on Tatooine before A New Hope starts, so there's no Maul, so it could be that Kira is actually running Crimson Dawn at that point. So, you know, given that the Book of Boba Fett could get into, you know, the criminal underworld post Return of the Jedi, is it possible Crimson Dawn, for example, could show up and we could see a slightly older Kira come back again? I wouldn't be against that. That's all I'm saying. You know, you might not care for it, but you know, I don't have any reason not to want that. I don't have any dislike there as such. You know, all the things I didn't like about Solo were script related to do with a lot of the stuff you're peeved off of as well. The way they tried to explain every aspect of Han's life in daft ways and just change his character up quite a bit just didn't work for me. But I actually didn't mind Kira's story of a person who's kind of getting sucked into the criminal underworld and thinks that's the right way to kind of live her life, is to get power. That makes sense.
I mean, if that had actually been the story,
especially if we see her again,
sure,
and she's just that she's moved even further into villainous, you know, territory by the next time we see her, because the audience won't necessarily expect that so much. But of course, it's been all of these years, and if she's been running a criminal organisation, she must have got, or if she wasn't enough, pretty worthless by then.
I don't know. I sometimes feel I feel that I'm such a strange Star Wars fan, because at the same time as I'm like, oh, I love all this old stuff, I'm not that big of a fan of the new stuff. I really am not a fan of the new stuff that takes place during the old stuff. Like, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like,
I know you want them to push in a new direction, and they're still filling in all the gaps.
New.
But I think there's a difference between telling good stories that happen during that period with good characters that don't necessarily need to connect to the main films a lot.
I agree.
Or just explaining everything. And what Solo did was, it didn't really tell us, I don't think, an interesting Han Solo story, as you and I have agreed. We didn't have an objection with a Han Solo story as such, but they didn't really play him like we would expect Han Solo to be at that time. And they just, it was like as if they went through a series of checkpoints of everything we knew about Han's life. So he starts off in Corellia, you know what I mean? We know that he joined the Empire at some point and got kicked out.
Even shoehorning a way to make...
And he saved them, the dice, which for some reason just became... important, even though it was just some set decoration in the Falcon in the original.
That wasn't the only thing. The dice wasn't the only thing they shoehorned in. They shoehorned in a way to make Lucas's terrible usage of the word parsec in Episode 4. They used the movie to actually make it a measure of distance.
Well, the canon had already done that, because it was just one of those things that didn't make sense. So that was retconned a long time ago, and if you remember, even back in the EU, although it was different there, it was all to do with black holes that surrounding Kessel, and it was how close you could go to a black hole.
To it. They retconned it in the E. That's what I'm saying.
It was distance rather than time. Yeah.
Exactly. It's just another point of going in and people correcting George Lucas's mistakes. It
was always one of those mistakes that had charm for me, because it was an honest mistake. People didn't know about parsecs then. People didn't know
the
space
average
physics,
person didn't know.
And
No,
he wasn't trying to be
but I
physically
still
accurate.
just want to point out to the people that want him so desperately to come back, he also thought droids going, that doesn't compute, you're under arrest. Like, why do you want him back?
Yeah, he's not what he once was, and he was never a particularly gifted writer to begin with. As we've said before on this, he was a good ideas man. But as I've said, I would pay money if someone said, I could show you the outline, but it'll cost you £100, and they could prove to me that they had it. I would pay $100 to read George Lucas's outline. I would. And I wouldn't. There's not a lot. I'm a cheapskate, so there's not a lot of things I would pay $100 for. But I would pay $100.
This is true. Scrooge McDuck is Scottish for a reason.
Yes. Keep all that money in a bank, son.
Oh man. They gave us a little bit of news to let us know that Rogue Squadron is still continuing. They gave us the what was it? A visual producer?
We found out the production designer is I forget the name, but she was basically who worked with Patty Jenkins on both Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 84, and she will be the production designer on. Which kind of, if you think about it, that does make sense, to be fair. They've obviously worked together before, they want to keep working together, etc, etc. Although,
I'll say
if you think about, I haven't seen Wonder Woman 84 because I've read the script and I knew how bad it was, and everyone said that, it doesn't get any better if you watch it. Plus, still would cost me money to watch it at the moment, so I will watch it when it's completely free of charge for me to watch. But I ain't paying money for something that I know I've read the script and hated it. So so I can't comment on the production design in Wonder Woman 84, but certainly Wonder Woman wasn't as good a film as a lot of people made it up to be, as far as I was concerned.
No,
but the production design was pretty good.
I was gonna say
after that whole World War I trench stuff and everything, and you did feel like you were in that era of...
I was going to correct myself and say, now that I think about the first film, because people got to understand that I dug into Patty Jenkins hard after Wonder Woman 84, because Rogue Squadron is life. You guys don't.
Yeah.
I got the 3-hour not interview, just straight or conversation with Mike Stackpole. We just happened to record.
And I talked about that when I covered this in the piece about how how we feel about it, and you especially, and the fact that you and Michael, Mr. Stackpole, have spoke about the movie and
follow each other on
and
social media
and talked about
bullshit,
your hopes and fears for it, and also that we know that he has not been contacted in any way to be involved in it, which both of us think is a mistake.
Yeah, that it's a mistake, but it could still be okay if
it's new characters, it's not his characters. We know that already. This is a brand new story, but it's the technical side of things I want him to get involved in. He understood how to make it all the world buildy stuff and make it all seem cool and consistent, within his books, how the planes work and everything like that and that, and I just think he'd be great to have as an advisor on that capacity. Nothing to do with the actual story they're telling, because you can't ask someone to do that. It's not his story. But
I would bring him on because look, Tim Zahn did a little bit of space fighting in his books, focused more on capital ships than small ships in the Thrawn trilogy.
Actually,
but
you
have to give it to one thing for Mike Stackpole above all else. If you don't want to say anything about Coron Horn or his fleshing out of Wedge and Hobby or Hobie, however you want to pronounce it. I hear the guy on the audiobook say Hobie. I always said Hobby.
But it's Hobby. Yeah. Does he not? He does. Luke says his name in the films, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So if that's how you pronounce it in the film, that's the name. So whoever read that audiobook,
whatever.
At least watch the films.
But besides that, the one thing Mike Stackpole gave Star Wars is how do X-Wings and TIE fighters fight each other? How does the combat physics work in a world of imaginary physics? Because we all know
absolutely
you don't need wings, and you got to have multiple directional thrusters like a Viper from Battlestar.
Well, the second version of Battlestar Galactica, anyway. The first ones didn't have that, but the second version felt like, and like the Babylon 5 fighters, they all felt like real physics stuff. But
real physics.
Star Wars was never that.
Designed it, man. He designed the inertial compensator, the idea that pilots could adjust the gravity in their cockpits to be a little more or a little less, to give them more feeling, less feeling, to the way that the rudder pedals work, and like he designed all of that. So it's like, if he's not on board as like a technical advisor, I swear to God, you better have someone like me who like can almost quote those books, maybe not, line for line, but story point to story point, beginning to end, from book 1 to 4 at least. Yeah, if you don't have someone with that, you're wrong right now, Lucasfilm. Like, dead wrong.
You don't need to get into that too much, but this almost feels like Top Gun in space. And Top Gun, a big part of Top Gun is how they get it right. Do you know what I mean? In terms of how these planes actually function and the purpose of a dogfight, and what the pilots have to go through and everything like that. Top Gun is more about that than it is people playing volleyball on the beach with the tops off. Do you know what I mean?
I would also say that a real fan of Rogue Squadron understands that the pilot relationships and the pilot stories themselves, the humans in the cockpit, are every bit as important as the adrenaline pumping dogfights, because you don't give a shit if a X-Wing blows up if you don't care about the pilot in it. And so, I do believe, I don't want them to retell. I've always thought, back in the day, I thought a Disney Plus series of Rogue Squadron taking Coruscant, basically using the first two books, would be a really cool thing to do, right? And then
you would
jump
have to
from there,
Wedge,
right?
Right enough.
Because you don't need Luke, you don't need Leia, you don't need Han. You could use some CGI trickery.
But you do need Wedge if you're going
but
to
you can
follow those
recast.
books.
You can
You would
recast.
recast them. Yeah.
That's an easy recast, and I wanted.
I hardly
but
see fans campaigning against that.
Yeah, whatever. But I am okay with the idea of the taking the idea of Rogue Squadron from, say, Poe Dameron being Admiral, or Poe Dameron being Commander Dameron with Admiral Antilles being like Akbar was in the books. I'm okay taking it into the future, but somebody needs to understand those first 4 books, because no matter where you place it, who's in charge, what names are on the roster, there's something specific about Rogue Squadron, and if you don't deliver that, fans are going to eat it alive. I swear Disney will not recover from it, dude. I think the fandom behind Rogue Squadron is that dedicated.
I don't know. I mean, you're that dedicated, so you're really passionate about it, and I'm a fan of those books as well. When it comes to the EU, I did love the Stackpole books, just the same as you. But I think there is just a big element of the fan base that the dogfighting, the fighter stuff, the pilot stuff isn't that interesting. And one of the comments we had for someone this week is the characters in Star Wars are either gangster, political bad guy, Jedi, wizard, pilot, and out of them, I'm least interested in the pilots. I was thinking, geez, that doesn't make sense to me, because I think to myself, as my favourite character in the originals was Han Solo, and he was the pilot. Luke's a big part of what made Luke was his pilot skills to me as a kid.
Well, it's called Star Wars.
The
whole thing we wanted was X-Wings fighting TIE fighters.
That brought me in as a kid and attracted me to that universe. I mean, absolutely love the space battle at the end of Return of the Jedi, as do you.
Best one we had. Honestly, people, you can disagree all you want. Return of the Jedi
look
has
at that
the
and
best.
Take out the ground based stuff, as in the Ewok stuff out of that, and if you just had it cut between the space battle and what's going on in the Emperor's throne room, I mean, that is vintage Star Wars right there. The only part of that that's let down is the Ewoks. If it instead of the Ewoks you had something else happening on the ground that was more interesting, you have literally the perfect last half an hour of that movie.
What else?
Everything else is amazing.
You know what else is perfect? This segue to our sponsor, Grow Generation, and an ad read by none other than Cam Clark himself. Take it away, Cam.
Grow Generation, where the pros go to grow. The Grow Generation commercial team is armed with industry-leading professional consultants. Grow Generation's team will help you fully manage any size or scale project. They offer turnkey facility designs, cultivation room design, and on-site project consultation. Go to www.growgeneration.com, where the pros go to grow.
All right, thank you so much, Cam. You did such a good job with that read, man. It's almost like we had the.
It's almost like it was pre-recorded. I just.
Awesome.
Anyway, I did get the name of that production designer just before we move on. It's Aline Bonetto.
Got it. So, I will say, when it comes to the Wonder Woman 1 look and feel, yes, I do agree. I'm okay with that. The reason I had that initial reaction is, like I said, I studied the hell out of her after 84 was such a bad movie, just a straight up bad movie. And it looked bad, but it's also different. The World War I stuff, definitely militaristic. That's more piloty during war. I'm down with that. This is what I really don't want. You said something that kind of scares me, and it does make me think that's what we're going to get, because she did say something about training new pilots and things like that. I didn't really want Top Gun in space. I don't want just the training of Rogue Squadron. Like, I don't want this to be new pilots. Maybe a couple of newbies and then a handful of seasoned veterans that are just forming a new squadron.
I get that.
I don't want Flight Academy.
Green.
I don't want Flight Academy.
I think in some ways Rogue Squadron should be an elite squad. So it should be like someone who maybe has been promoted to Rogue Squadron because they've already got such a great record in another squad, for example, or something like that. So,
but she
because
said
Rogue Group gets
new
set
batch
in the worst
of pilots, and then you said Top Gun, and that scared me. Oh no!
But that's just me talking about what we perceive the
I know
when we think about a pilot movie. I think of Top Gun first and maybe Iron Eagle second or something like that. And we don't want Iron Eagle.
Iron Eagle should be first, motherfucker. Chappie! we got audience right now that are just like, they spent 10 minutes talking about the weather, and now they're talking about Iron fucking Eagle. Who the goddamn hell is Chappie?
We're talking about pilot movies, aircraft movies, that are set about planes and stuff like that. And there are some really, really good ones. But, given the era we grew up in, it's not hard to imagine how the first comes to, certainly for me, growing up in the 80s, why it
Iron
would come
Eagle
to
gave
that.
us...
Or Firefox is another one for me.
Oh, yeah.
Firefox.
Oh, that was Defoe, right?
It's a boring film. But there's hardly any actual plane stuff in it. Once it does happen, it's cool as fuck. To me, I loved planes growing
Iron
up.
Eagle gave
Star
us...
Wars created that.
Iron Eagle gave us a flight simulator training montage.
Yeah.
We got flight training montages through Iron Eagle. That was great. I loved that first movie. Man. The production designer, I'm okay with that carrying forward. Like I said, my biggest fear is just
you're worried about this film.
What are they gonna? What story are they gonna tell? Because the idea of seeing training training newbies, I don't want newbies. I don't want this.
No.
Rogue Squadron's a symbol.
If it's a new batch of experienced pilots, I'm okay with that. But I don't want people that learning how to fly and shit.
No.
That feels like a waste of a film,
Oh, God.
I'm expecting these pilots to be the best of the best in whatever way, whatever they could find from the Resistance experienced fighters. But I don't know, and we don't have any idea of what kind of actual story they're going to tell, because if this is as... It's not been confirmed, but we speculate based on what has been said about it so far that this would be set post Skywalker. And if that is the case, what is the story after that? I mean, that's we just have no idea where things go for there. This would be the first time we've ever had anything past it, which is not surprising considering that only came out a couple of years ago. But
it would be similar to the Rogue Squadron books, I guess, which would be that you form them up to both be a symbol, but also to be used when it's time to go wipe out the rest of the First Order. So, because
we assume are still out there since they had almost getting a complete control again. Although that all feels a bit very fluid to me, the way that all happens. It took the Empire 20 years to get to the point where we see them in A New Hope, and the First Order seemed to do it in the 10 minutes in between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. But hey, we won't criticise the sequels.
No.
Oh well. No, maybe we won't.
We won't. Not
well, actually,
not today.
One other thing was John Boyega. And he had said that, he'd kind of previously been almost like, I ain't going back to Star Wars. Was kind of his thing, if you like. He didn't seem too happy, and his main gripe does seem to be with the way Rian Johnson took his story in The Last Jedi. Yeah, when I watch highlights of like the video online, like John Boyega, basically Finn saying Rey a lot. How many times does Finn say Rey in the trilogy? And he actually says it the least in The Last Jedi. So I don't know. Abrams' answer for Finn was to get him to shout Rey a lot, as far as I can tell. But for some reason, Boyega really rates J.J. Abrams. He doesn't seem to be love what happened to his character in The Last Jedi. And he had said, he would come back to Star Wars at some point in the future, as long as Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams were involved. For me, I was like, well, Kathleen Kennedy would be involved because she's the president of Lucasfilm, so she's involved in everything, so that's really a gimme. But honestly, if it's a choice, I would like to see them do something better with the character of Finn. Sure, he's got the Force potential. I think that there's potential there in a story for him. I wouldn't mind John Boyega back as such, because I think they kind of did his character. I really do think they did his character. He was a good character in The Force Awakens, and I just kind of didn't like him by the time the Rise of Skywalker comes round. So I would like to see them do something with him, but if the condition is that we have to get J.J. Abrams back, sorry John, I'll do without you. It's as simple as that, because that guy is wrong for Star Wars. I don't want to see him anywhere near Star Wars again.
You know what's sad? Is he actually made the best Star Wars movie since the original trilogy with Star Trek. True or false?
No, because I don't like his Star Trek films,
But it's dude.
I know
because it's not Star Trek, it's Star Wars.
I know, but I just even then it doesn't feel Star Wars to me. But I think in some ways The Force Awakens was a good film. It was, and I thought it was a decent film at the time because it had some really good moments in it. But what I felt was like, right, okay, he's giving us I kind of get that they went back to the well with a lot of stuff. They copied a lot of stuff because they probably had to bring a fan base back again. But now we need to have some really exciting where this goes, and that never happened for me. But in hindsight, looking back at it, a lot of the decisions that Abrams makes for that first film are where the problems of that trilogy comes in. Because he just brings the First Order in with no explanation. He brings Snoke in with any explanation and leaves that. And then he basically starts the next film at the end of his movie, which I think really does pigeonhole Rian Johnson into where he can go. He must start with Rey meeting Luke. Therefore, his movie has to start immediately after The Force Awakens. Yeah, that's a horrible place to put him into as a writer before you even start. Well, but you don't know that at the time. That's hindsight,
There's one workaround to that. What they really could have done is literally the crawl goes up, right? Music hits, here comes the crawl, The Last Jedi. 3 years later, right? What's her name's been training, yada yada yada. When the hold on. When the camera pans down, you have some sort of space thing going on, because that's usually what happens between the First Order and the Resistance. Poe in some sort of guerrilla supply attack run or something like that. After that scene's done and over with, we cut to Rey giving Luke the lightsaber and a quick flashback that she wakes up from during her training, and she's now been training for 3 years. Ta-da! I fixed Last Jedi.
I mean, I'm okay with that, but Rian Johnson would hate it because he wanted to put Luke into that different space. So if you had someone else making the movie, maybe they could have did that, but there was no way that could ever happen.
Okay, better yet. I can give it to Ryan. I could give it to Rian Johnson. So you still same opening. She gives him the lightsaber. They have that conversation where he slams the door in her face, and when he does, she wakes up from the training, and it's Leia training her instead. Boom, baby. Fixed it again.
Well, again, I would also have liked that in some ways, but it would have been a bit weird coming on from where we started, and you would have felt like, why did Leia not just do that in the first place, and what happened with Luke, and then you would have to go and explain in flashbacks everything that happened with Luke, and then you don't give him, then he is just an asshole at that point because he's out the story, and she doesn't need him.
You don't even necessarily need a 3-year jump at this point. Now it's only one year, okay? Now we only need a 1 year jump, right? Okay? So that way you don't have to explain too much. They know where Luke is, and part of the storyline, and this way you still get your grumpy old man Luke, is it's leaked to Kylo. Kylo finds out where Luke is somehow, some way, and it's a race to get to Luke and protect him from the First Order. You have Leia and Rey go there. He gets to be the grumpy old man still, and it still gets to be a better movie, and Luke and Leia get time together. Shit.
I mean, that would have been good in terms of just, but that, for me, I'd be looking for a full reiterate. I think what Abrams does wrong is he doesn't know what to do with Luke, right? Yeah. So he makes Luke the MacGuffin in that film, but he just can't, like, he's got to have his cake and eat it. And that's why he has to get Mark Hamill in for that final shot. Really, if The Force Awakens had ended just with the Millennium Falcon blasting off into hyperspace, do you know what I mean? As they go looking for Luke, and stops at that point, we never actually got to see Luke, maybe the film wouldn't have been as popular as it was, because people freaked out about Luke showing up and stuff like that. Because, you know what, people were just I think Lucasfilm have lived, people just really wanted to see more Luke Skywalker, and you know,
can you blame them?
Just didn't do that, you know. No, I don't blame them. I just wish we'd got a different. As I've always said to you, I was okay with Grumpy Luke. You were okay with Grumpy Luke. You know, a lot of fans weren't. But we were okay with that. I didn't like some of the messages that kind of he tried to convey to Rey, because it didn't seem to follow much logic. It was just kind of Rian Johnson going, well, I need to give him reasons why he's pissed off here. And I never fully understood his reason for breaking so badly, if you like, which I felt we needed to do. I've said that many times. But at the same time, I don't have an issue with a forlorn Luke that's not happy in life, and you know, is a bit depressed and is really kind of just gone there to die. That's okay with me, as long as we fully understand it. But everything else that goes along with it and where they take the story ultimately, it doesn't fit together as one cohesive unit. So yeah, I'm not too bothered if John Boyega comes back or not. I'd be quite happy to see him again, as long as he doesn't bring back J.J. Abrams with him. But honestly, for the amount of money that J.J. Abrams would, you know, you'd need to deliver a truckload of money to J.J. Abrams' house to get him to come back to Star Wars at this point. And I just, why do it? You know what I mean? It doesn't really make any sense to me. He still did make one of the worst Star Wars films ever made in The Rise of Skywalker, let's not forget that. And however way you swing it, you know, a lot of the way that sequel trilogy goes is down to the vision of J.J. Abrams, who directed 2 parts of it ultimately. And you can't just turn around and blame it. And some fans still try to say, it's all Rian Johnson. If we had followed on naturally in a second part and then went to J.J. Abrams' idea for the third movie, it would all have worked. I don't think so, because still J.J. Abrams has the gall to basically demean the entire ending of Return of the Jedi, in order to give himself a better end, to give himself the big end. Do you know what I mean? That's, you know, he'd rather have that in his movie. I would have been like, oh, no, I can't touch that, you know, because what if I mess up, you know, I can't mess up that film just by trying to make my film good. That would have been my thinking going into it, and I just don't think he has that in him. Too much ego in J.J. Abrams for me.
If I could truth serum anyone, I want to know who it was that said, we will bring back Palpatine. That's all I wanted to know.
I think it was Abrams and Chris Terrell's idea ultimately.
Really?
I think it was the two of them that wrote that script. I think it's them. I mean, I've heard that it was mentioned prior, you know, when they were making The Force Awakens, as a possibility that they could use, but no kind of definite plans. But there certainly was no proper plan, as we've discussed many times before, for for bringing back Palpatine until J. Abrams comes back on board and starts rewriting the script. So I'm guessing you would just have to assume it's him and Chris Terrio that then go to, I don't know whether it's Kennedy, Iger, whoever else was kind of making the ultimate decisions on what to do with it at that point, and saying, okay, our plan is to bring back Ian McDiarmid as Emperor Palpatine. This is what we're going to do. We think this will really connect with the fans and bring them all back on board. And he probably even used the argument that he presented to the audience at one point, that it would be weird to not have the villain appear at the last chapter of a book. But at the same time, you don't write a book and finish it, then write a third party to it and say, oh, this was really the end. You know, you don't do that, and that's what they did. They just tried to tack an ending onto it, and all it does is it doesn't work with the first 6 episodes that you see before. But
on top of that, it does look to me, and I know I sound like a Debbie Downer here, but it looks like we might be getting a bit more of the Dark Empire saga story arc, which is Luke going to the dark side, the Thrawn trilogy from Zahn. We've seen Luke's cloned hand in a tank in the Vader comic, and there's some rumblings across the interwebs about some plot points in Ahsoka and Mando and Boba Fett. So, but I'll be honest with you.
I'm not hearing anything that I would say is coming from a legitimate source at the moment. I think what you're hearing is fan speculation that's run wild.
I will be honest with you, the very way that they used the clone body Emperor in Rise of Skywalker is straight from the Dark Empire.
I'm not going to argue with that. I just mean the sort of rumours about this and that, because really we don't. I think the truth is, even the best leakers for, Star Wars content, of which we are one, are hearing nothing about, specifics like that. But there is a lot of stuff out there, is what I'm saying.
I'm talking inference. People talking, like putting things together
speculating
that
based
seen.
On what we already know, etc.
What we've already seen. That to me,
speculation.
To me, it's a real possibility, because that would be Disney again going, yep, we made a mistake, because you can also see that, they released those toys and those reprinted books, the Luke Skywalker from the Timothy Zahn book, and then you look at that and you're just like, man, to me it's almost day late, dollar short. I don't want to see anything from the past anymore. Give me something brand fucking new, or I'm just done. I'm gonna go see if Marvel stays good, and if they don't, I'm just gonna weeb out and do nothing but watch anime.
But you've enjoyed The Mandalorian, so you're a liar.
I have. It's been good.
And Kyle, although it's a cartoon and it's got the negatives of a cartoon, but yet this is a guy who watches anime and stuff like that. I
am not against cartoons in any way.
I think
I love Amazing World of Gumball, Teen Titans.
Not everything is always great every episode so far. There's been, certainly last week's episode felt like just a big filler episode, and you'd hate it. Actually, that episode for a variety of different reasons, which I know, but I won't explain to you. But that kind of feels like a given in the cartoon series, that you end up getting these kiddie episodes that just do nothing. But in general, it's been quite a dark story so far.
For me, it's just I have
it's
such
interesting to see how the Empire becomes the Empire straight after the Republic, which is what they're showing us a little bit.
For me, it's always comes back to my experience with the prequel trilogy. I could not.
But this isn't the prequel anymore.
I understand that. I could not connect to that era, to those characters. I really, really couldn't. So when the Clone Wars CGI cartoon hit, I didn't care. It wasn't because it was a cartoon. I mean, at that time, I think I was watching Teen Titans. I think they were on at the same time, and I liked the old Teen Teen Titans show, but I didn't care about the Clone Wars, so I never watched it. And when it became good, apparently I was older, had no kid yet, or my son was too young, so there was never a reason for me to even give it a shot on its own. And so now we're just at a point to where it's like eight seasons of Clone Wars, however many of Rebels. I tried Resistance. That was a horrible idea. And then this new one. And it literally all comes down to the fact that the prequel trilogy sucked.
Yeah, I mean, I totally know where you're coming from. But again, it kind of comes to that. Are you done with Star Wars? Is there enough bad stuff's happened that that's you done with it? Or do you watch each thing and just hope it's good? And I think I'm at the point where I watch something and I hope it's good. And if it's not, it's not. And I say it's not. All I'm saying is, so far, and this is very strange for a season 1 of an animated show, because the Clone Wars season 1 was hot garbage, and so was Rebels season 1. They really didn't get going till season 2. So far, the Bad Batch has been better than both of them to begin with. And I think for that alone, it's worth keeping an eye on. But we'll see where it goes. But it would be interesting to talk to you about it, since we're on a Star Wars podcast, and that's the current thing that's out there.
Part of it is I'm just daunted by all the stuff that I don't know, and
I get you. So you feel like you'd need to go and watch the arcs in the Clone Wars to get there in the first place and everything like that.
Maybe,
I get you.
But it's also like, can I care? And what if I don't? What if I do open myself up again, and I go into it hard, skipping the first season, following, some glorious watch order, and it still pisses me off? Then what? Like, right now I nothing it. I haven't seen it, so I nothing it.
You can't live in fear like that, though. Fear is the path to the dark side.
There is now a finite.
Do not be afraid.
No, I am, because there is a finite amount of good my personal idea of good Star Wars out there. What I love the most is no longer being made, and the stuff that is good has come at a price.
I give you that.
So I am scared. It's finite, man.
It's not. But if you're talking about something that so many people say is actually one of the better aspects of Star Wars, then I think you should trust that maybe there's something in that, and that's even coming from someone who didn't like the prequels like you.
Yeah, but you had kids younger than me, so man.
I didn't have kids when the prequels came out. I mean, I didn't get any. My son was born in 2007. We already had all the prequels.
No, your age, your actual age. You were younger when your first was born than I was, is what I'm saying. So right, okay. I didn't have a kid around at the age to help me get into either
cartoons. You mean kind of
the later cartoons? Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't through my son I started watching them, to be honest. I don't think he's even watched
the
Clone Wars, to be
Rebels.
honest. I mean, it might have been on at the start.
Rebels, yeah.
Well, Rebels as well, I enjoyed the Clone Wars more than Rebels, but I don't think you need to watch any of Rebels to kind of catch the Bad Batch. You could probably watch the last 2 seasons of the Clone Wars and get totally, up to speed with where you need to be on the Bad Batch, for example, just to enjoy it. And you might say, oh, that wasn't too bad, I'll maybe check out the rest of that Clone Wars stuff later. But you wouldn't need to touch Rebels. I think where watching Rebels would come in handy is when we get to where things are going in the Mandoverse, because that's very much connected to, I mean, that's Dave Filoni, it's coming on for all his stuff. So,
Ahsoka,
of course there's Ahsoka stuff in the Clone Wars, but probably more importantly is the stuff that happens in Rebels in terms of immediacy, if you like, to the connection to the story of where we think things are going. Certainly the character of Ahsoka, if you want to kind of follow that character going into her own show. Then,
I almost wish they'd made them books.
I mean, she does have a book out, but I haven't read it.
know what I mean.
But this is a character I despised when they created her for that initial film. So you're talking season 1, and they brought out that stupid film, and the idea of giving Anakin an apprentice who's just not there come Revenge of the Sith, that made no sense to me whatsoever at the time. And nothing I saw from season 1 of the Clone Wars made me feel any different from that. But somehow Dave Filoni did make Ahsoka an interesting character, and actually made the fact that she wasn't in Revenge of the Sith important, because she was doing something else at the same time. Literally at the point Anakin's turning and slaughtering kids, she's fighting Darth Maul and Mandalore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's, that doesn't matter in terms of that, but her story with Anakin actually is quite a good story. You know what I mean? Because this was genuinely someone he had feelings for, in terms of almost like fatherly feelings for, in the same way that Obi-Wan would have had for him. And so he turns against her as well with everything that he does. And part of what makes her not quite like the other Jedi is that her master was Anakin, and Anakin wasn't quite like the rest of them. Do you know what I mean? So that gives her a bit of just something different. She's just that little bit of a level above the average kind of just Jedi. You see, I think there's just something a little bit more special about Ahsoka because of everything that she's went through. So yeah, to get her story, I think you should at least. As I say, just watch season 6. It doesn't matter if you don't work out what's going on. You'll follow up pretty quickly. It's for kids after all. Just watch season 6 and 7 of the Clone Wars, and then try a couple episodes of the Bad Batch and see what you think. You never know. You might go, that's not too bad.
Maybe I'll work up the courage. Maybe.
You can always talk about what you feel on here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, especially on dry episodes like today. Well, it wasn't that dry. We actually had really great conversations. I mean, dry weeks like this week where we have to have conversations like today.
So far, to be honest.
But anyways, let's go ahead and wrap it up. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Please hit the red subscribe button if you haven't already. That really helps us out. Gets us some notoriety in a good way out there in the algorithm. And then, of course, if you're listening on the Genreverse Podcast Network, brought to you by LRMonline.com, please follow us on whatever app you're listening to us. And share us with some friends and family. LRMonline.com, it's where you get all your entertainment news, needs, and opinions every single day. Great things, celebrity interviews, rumors and leaks reported on responsibly. That's right. No bullshit here unless the bullshit is interesting enough to say, what if this bullshit was actually real? But we're never going to try to sell you guys that the bullshit's real.
Can you believe this bullshit?
Can you believe this bullshit?
Yeah.
Oh man, which actually should be a segment on the Daily Cup of Genre, the Daily Cog, our daily podcast and video, which you can catch again on the podcast network and the YouTube channel every Monday through Friday. Yeah, some of that bullshit. Yeah, we're gonna go with that. I'm at that Kyle Malone on Twitter, at that one Kyle Malone on Instagram. Cam, where can people find you at?
I'm at LRM_Cam on Twitter.
There you guys go. Please follow us at LRM_exclusive at the Genreverse as well for the Twitter stuff on the website and the podcast stuff. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week. May the Force be with you. Bye.